Ladies and gentlemen, this panel discussion is going to be about uplifting the financial advertising game, elevating user experiences through contextual targeting in a brand-safe ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, this session is going to be chaired by Lawrence Suchita, Head of Sales, West Hybrid, and Lawrence G is going to be joined on stage by Ashok Shinde, Vice President, Media and Strategy, Pivot Roots, a HAPS company, Francis Rodriguez, SVP, E-commerce and Digital Marketing, HDFC Life, Srinivas Khanolkar, Head Products Marketing and Corporate Communications, Mira Asset Investment Managers, India, and of course, Vanita Keswani, CEO, Madison Media, Sigma.
Well, in this digital space, we have seen that contextual has started gaining a lot of recognition. And by contextual, we mean the right ad at the right time to the right audience. And that's how this whole panel has been fashioned. It is uplifting the financial advertising game, enhancing user experience through contextual targeting. We have a very eminent round of people out here, and they are marketers, they are agency people. So it's going to be very interesting how the questions are going to be answered. And I had this small chat with them yesterday and today, and I think I'll leave it to them to go ahead with how this is going to go. So my first question is, how important is personalization in an ad campaign that you all strategize, and how has the contextual targeting helped you with that?
I think given in today's world where you can actually know so much about the consumer because of the virtue of walled gardens, and they do have a lot of information, I think personalization really helps marketers be able to unlock more value for the money that they're investing. And if I were to really look at it, say if a brand is looking to put out a communication or wanting to reach out to a parent, if you're using personalization in your creatives, in your comms, and also are able to talk to them in a space when they are probably researching or reading about maybe not just about, let's say, the financial product that's meant for parents, or let's say insurance that they could be selling, but also you could be talking to them when they are consuming content about maybe parenting products. Right? So it just allows you to broaden your reach to them and be able to solve some of the challenges which probably may come eminently with contextual when we want to look at it, people who are consuming a specific kind of content at a given point in time for it. So we could look to actually be little contextual as well as actually little lateral, depending on whom the consumer that we are talking to at any given point in time for it. So it's extremely helpful for brands to be able to do a very relevant storytelling to the end user, and it's almost you are able to put in a double filter on it. So you are reaching to the right user, you're taking the right comp, and you're reaching them in an environment when that's actually most appropriate also for it.
Francis.
So I think let's kind of look at some examples where contextual really helps, and then let's go into the personalization and where it's going. So I think from a life insurance perspective from the industry, I think one of the most important things is when do people think about life insurance, and there are very clearly defined life stages at the point at various points where people really think about life insurance. It's very much like the paints industry. Right? I mean, we show a lot of advertising about paints, but unless somebody's planning to paint, we call people planning to paint. It doesn't really kind of fall on the right fertile soil. Similarly, in life insurance, I think the first job, because that's when people think about tax planning, the entire piece around it. Then during marriage, I think it's very unique in India. Right? In most Western markets, what happens is the nominee changes from the parent to the spouse. In India, both the sons and daughters don't like to change their parents out of their life insurance policy to buy another one in the name of their spouse. A third was childbirth, because that's typically the first time in your life where you know that there's someone who's completely dependent on you. A fourth good example is basically just before retirement, because that's when people think about oh yeah, what do I do, or how do I plan my expenses for the rest of my life when I'm not been working. So all these are fairly important life stages. A few more important ones which we've kind of uncovered over a period of time. One is around the first, if there is a death of an immediate parent. When I say immediate parent, I mean your parent or your spouse's parent. That's basically around the time when people start thinking, oh, they start kind of closing affairs, figuring out everything else, and they say, okay, what about myself? What do I do when this happens to me? So these are fairly important life stages, and reaching people in the right context, I think really kind of drives the message home when speaking, especially about insurance. But I'm sure that there are similar things across different categories. When it comes to personalization, I think very, very specific points, like for example, instead of calling a dear customer, you address somebody by name, that improves your sort of responses or connectivity on, say, calls by around 10%. So this is, I'm talking about somebody sending a direct marketing message or a direct marketing message on email, SMS, WhatsApp, and then somebody clicking. If you had send the message just as dear customer, then the likelihood of somebody picking up your call when you call them post that is 10% lower than had you kind of address somebody by name. Similarly, increasingly, again in insurance and otherwise, you're trying to create, well, the product remains the same. You're trying to speak to the right audience segment with the right sort of give-get. So for somebody, based on your income and based on everything else, 1 crore sort of life cover is good. Somebody else, it's 2, for somebody else, it's 5. So rather than showing a generic message saying 1 crore life cover, the cheapest and this, you kind of, if you're kind of reaching out to the right audience with the more sort of contextual message based on income, based on other things, I think that's more likely to kind of have better click-through rates, better response rates, and so on and so forth. So, in short, I think very, very important.
So, you see a lot of young people here, and I think probably most of them will eventually come to all of us trying to pitch something, so probably I'll try to address to them. So, I represent asset management company from mutual fund perspective. I think one of the key tools which most of the investors land up on our websites or any place is the calculators, right? And how much I'm going to save, and how much I'm going to invest at what rates, and how do we do it. Now that's where I think personalization can play a huge role, because everybody's use case is different, right? Everybody's in a different way. You can't just generalize in terms of, okay, you're a 30 to 40 year age group, or you're a 40 to 50 year age group. Somebody who's 24 and not married and somebody who's 24 and married will have completely different perspectives. So I think that's very crucial, that at that step, at that moment of truth, if you are going to help them with a very sort of customized solution, personalized touch to him, I think that plays a much more role. So anyone coming to us later trying to pitch something should think of these things when they come and talk to us. And that's one step, I think, maybe the first step where your consumer is interacting with you, at least in our case. And anyways, from industry perspective, you would have all seen the AMFI Mutual Fund Sahi campaign and what it has created. So after that creation, the seat has turned warm for them. Now they want to know more. And I think that's when the previous fireside said that talk to them in their language. That's very important.
I won't go too long. I think a lot of points have been covered. But I would certainly say from a media planning point of view, there are two ways to look at it. One is whether we want to, what is really the role of digital? Because today there are two contradictory points of view today on digital becoming so much high at scale that earlier it was looked at one supplementary medium. So, you used to take television, digital was just for these kind of things. Can I do contextual, can I do this, can I do that? And today I think while contextual is a great way to, of course, sharp target your consumer to be, whether it is in finance or personal, whatever areas that you want to cover. I think today there is an age that has come that digital has become so big that contextual has become a smaller element in the overall scheme of the digital plan. So when you ask me importance, I wouldn't say it's extremely important, Because today people want reach. They would ask us the reverse now. How much reach is getting added by digital? That was not the case, fewer years earlier. That's contradictory point of view I'm laying on the table.
No, thank you. I think that helps. There are a lot of ad platforms today that give you that personalization. Um, for example, there is something called triggers that is very weather centric. So a weather in a particular state would be different. Mumbai weather is always changing. Yesterday it was one and today it's another. It will be a nightmare for the ad tech platform to actually put the right weather up. But just imagine a scenario, a case where you would have personalization on banners. I think that would be the best, right? Wherein today the emails go personally because you'll have the data for most of your clients, users that are there. But just imagine if that banner had to be personalized towards a particular sector. So that would contextually be targeted to one particular demographic. That would be amazing. So we're still waiting for that time to happen. It's not yet happened, I'm sure. But yeah. I'll just move on. From a contextual and a personalization perspective, the huge question that we come across is brand safety. So, what are the steps that is taken by all for a brand safe environment? Because this space is ever evolving. You have content that needs to be the right content, that your ad needs to be seen. This is irrespective of a written content or a video content. And I'm sure as marketers, you all are very, very sensitive to the fact that it should be seen next to it the right content. So, from that perspective, what do you look for? And how do you preempt this in maybe searching for the right platform or the right site? I would like you to please throw some light on that.
Start this time. So at a pre-bid level, there are ways to look at tools which allow you to block URLs, or you can do some listing that you can block and stuff like that. That really helps. But overall, there are tools also that are post evaluation tools which really give you that, okay, if you were targeting a certain demographic and did you really reach that target audience? That of late we've been seeing is becoming quite redundant because you cannot do much with it after knowing about it except just complain to the platform. So that is that. But I think, and the other third trend I would talk about is that typically, like I was saying when we were chatting, this is more a multinational phenomena, still brand safety, multinational companies, and higher up the ladder in terms of digital evolution, those companies are picking this up more because you need to invest in tools for it. So how much would you really want to invest in is the question. As regards what you were saying, it's so true that in print you don't have any such option. Wherever you're placed, you can't take responsibility. But in digital, if it comes up, the client is going to raise it up saying, we could have done this, we could have done that. But it's something that we need to really evolve more in India as of now, is what I'm saying.
So I think everybody says health is important, but 2016 in Demon, everybody's queuing around the ATMs to withdraw cash. Right? So finance is important, nobody wants to compromise on that, and I think when it comes to those sort of deliverables at the industry level and even for a brand, your brand entity, your trust becomes very, very important. Right? And you don't want somebody cloning it, faking it, and then taking advantage of it. So, of course, we use a lot of tools to keep brand monitoring across the various brands we have. We try to figure out whether somebody is registering domains earlier, not using them. The moment anything pops up, then we could pull them down and do it. But it's also got to do with a lot of awareness that you need to keep making your clients aware. Largely the prospects, because once a consumer has touched with you, the investor has invested with you, I think he will largely understand that this is your look and feel, right? But the prospect who's getting lured by all of this, maybe some lucrative offers being posted out, I think those need to be dealt with severity, and that has to happen immediately. Today, for example, if you find, now the laws are also getting stricter, right? You need to go and register a digital FIR with the cybersecurity police on these things have happened, and then they sort of act on it. And why it's important? It's important to keep your brand interested by the investors, because eventually if somebody comes to you saying that, this is what I lost because of this, and why didn't you take any measure, I think that's a fallback you can have, that you've already registered a complaint, right? So there are enough tools, and I think what's going to happen is, with the use of AI, I think they're going to evolve even further, and we'll wait for that to happen. But yes, it's a big headache for the brands to sort of keep in line with the current regulations, the pace at which these things are changing, and yet sort of be on the right side of it.
Thanks, Srinivas. I think you already spoke about the entire piece around fraud and ensuring that there is nobody kind of putting up false websites, misrepresenting your brand, or phishing for customer information. I think on the ad side also it's equally important. There is a lot of work which used to happen primarily on negating URLs and website, and some of the easy ones are simple, right? You don't want your brand to be, unless you are into that space, you don't want your brand to be next to, say, a terrorism promoting website, or porn, or basically, say, gambling sites, and so on and so forth. But some of them are slightly more nuanced. During, say, COVID, there were a whole bunch of, a lot of misinformation around possible cures and things like that. Would you like your brand to be advertised there? As a life insurance company, if there is, say, a flood or a natural disaster, life insurance logically is an important thing, but would you like your brand to be present there? Wouldn't you be seen as, say, profiteering from, say, a natural calamity? Some of these things are relatively more difficult to kind of assess and then figure out exactly from a brand safety perspective. Another interesting one these days is basically what are called as made for advertising websites. So, some marketers like them primarily because it gives you lower sort of cost per view, cost per lead, and so on and so forth. But would an educated enough customer like your brand next to a spammy, clickbaity website? What does it kind of tell you? So these are some things where it's still conflict. There are no sort of straight answers, black and white. Okay. But there's a lot of work happening. And while India is still catching up in terms of real big investment into some of these tools and something else, I think it's gradually getting there.
I think most of the points are covered, but as Vinita said, you have two ways of dealing about brand safety, at least in advertising space digitally. You look at your pre-bid, where before your ad is even showing up on a destination where you're trying to place your ad, there's algorithm rules that probably looks at that checklist, and whether that criteria is met or not, then decides whether you really want to show up on that placement that ad is likely to happen. And also the post bid is where I think a lot of brands actually have eventually figured out their template of kind of placements, kind of platform they would want to be, and they necessarily don't want to then deviate it too much from that. So by that virtue, let's say your 80-90% of money that you're spending is already on proven platform that has worked well for you, or probably are brand safe. Just to give an example, even if you look at most of the walled garden advertising houses, whether that's Meta or Google, they have so many inbuilt offering that really empowers advertisers and marketers to make that informed choice. You can probably look at certain category exclusion, as you were talking about maybe something like violence, political news. You probably can suppress your ad, and even though you are using very advanced audience segmentation, affinity-based, in-market-based, your ad is not going to show up on those websites for it. So there are ways in which many brands are already leveraging, and these are coming at no cost when you advertise with some of these giants. So by that virtue, you do can exercise them very well and can prevent some of these mishaps that might happen for your ad landing on a website that you don't want it to be for it. But also equally, if you look at platforms like YouTube, it houses content of every kind. So, at a content level, making that determination on a platform which caters to multiple categories or multiple genres is also equally important for us to do. And there are tools, as Nita said, it's more about having brand to invest on those is eventually one of the key decisions that brand often have to make.
Thank you. In fact, I think the first time that I heard about brand safety was almost 16 years back, somewhere in 2009, 2010, when the network industry was picking up in India. And that's when it was very imperative for most of the marketers to see to it that they are on the right content, because those days it was just written content that was there. Today you have video, which is playing a very huge role. So yes, you're right, and from that perspective, I think the whitelist and the blacklist is ever evolving. As of just yesterday or this hour, right? So that's going to be something that is really challenging from the perspective of how you need your ad to be seen in the right place. This actually comes to the next question, that is AI, right? AI is a big norm. AI is something very big today. I think the AI thing started just 2-3 years back. Everybody's talking about it. But AI coupled with computer vision technology, and I'm sure you all look that for in most of your most of your ad tech partners. And from that perspective, your delivery also has to be top notch. How do you all do that? How is that whole thing done when you're coupling AI with computer vision or just AI itself? How do you select the right strategy to put that across? And not to mention, AI also has its own qualms, right? It's, at the end of the day, it's data. So, yeah, please.
Two aspects. I think one is AI helps definitely drive scale, especially if you're have large number of SKUs and large number of products across different geographies, different sort of languages, and so on and so forth. Just creating adapts and of your creative, making some of these things. AI definitely allows you to do that much faster. In the process of building an ad also, I think tools like Midjourney allow you to kind of visualize how the storyboard would look at much before you kind of go into a shoot. And some of these things really help because it helps bring to flesh a whole bunch of ideas that are still ideas in people's minds. It helps in running customer service, pre-advertising, for aromatics, for a whole bunch of other things. Apart from that, there are a lot of interesting stuff that AI can do from the end customer perspective also, purely as a marketer, especially computer vision. So today, most Gen Zs don't really like a boring category like insurance. How do I make it easy for them? So how about a selfie code? You go take a picture of yourself, and there's enough amount of work on computer vision today with the ready APIs which will kind of help you do these 4-5 things. One, it tells you your gender fairly accurately. It tells your age within say 2 or 3 years here and there. It also is able to tell you a certain amount of your heart rate and blood pressure. This is usually by looking at the blood flowing through your extremities in a fraction of seconds. For that you need a short video. And all these, while they're not the sort of end norm, they don't preempt the requirement of say going for a medical test. It's still something interesting as a sales hack to at least get people through the door. So both computer vision as well as AI from a scale perspective as well as from very specific, interesting use cases perspective, you'll see more and more of it coming.
Add a bit in this to say that we look at emotions, like you can actually look at happy moments or winning moments, and then some brand celebs. I think a lot of banks and insurance companies take celebrities, for example. Yesterday we had a chess champion, so they would like to associate with such moments. So that can be done through AI very interestingly. And DCO, which is dynamic creative optimization, is also another part that comes here, which is very interesting, where you can do it based on the time and the moments, or like he said, scale up creatives in a big way and also make them contextual. Those are the two broad things that I can think of.
Just adding to the same point, we have seen at our agency also, but we've been able to reduce human intervention greatly when it comes to either coming with copies or having the design. But not to say that it's actually then eliminating the human intervention, while I think it really is still needed, and probably you have to probably put stronger checks in place so that you're not letting something not suitable for brand to slip through for it. So I think this really allows you to able to scale for maybe hundreds of consumer cohort segmentation that you would want to talk about. Able to write something for that specific customer segment, and also be able to create visually that depicts that even sure will in a way help you draw better outcome that you're chasing for it. So definitely it's in a big way it can help. And even from advertising, we have seen what generative AI can do in a lot of the ads, run by sort of large confectionery brands, and it has been able to create a lot of relevance to the people who are seeing where they are, and is able to really create awareness for the brand and brand love also for it.
So I would say, for example, where is AI helping us in analyzing customer data? Right? It's helping us create personas. It's helping us understand who's your customer who's more likely to leave you in some time, with analyzing the data of past and then predicting it. And what Vanita said, that if the media side of the data analysis can be stitched with it, then I think it can even further go up in terms of what is your correct segment that you have to look at and how do you approach that. Challenge, however, is at least from a PI perspective, right? This data, how do you keep secure? How do you ensure that the employees who have customer data don't have access to these tools? You don't want that data to be floating around there, right? So it's got both sides, and I think how do you want to use it and how you're going to make it more effective is eventually going to help you.
Wonderful. I think touched upon all of it.
It's not, while you spoke about computer vision also, it's a sort of contrarian view. Today you see a lot of technology, the same technology that's used in deepfakes, also used for better personalization. Okay? So you can have your celebrity brand ambassador come and speak to you individually as a customer. Right? You can have the CEO of your company come and speak to you individually as a retailer, and so on and so forth. While this seems to be a trend, I think it's still, the jury is not out yet whether people will like it or not. To some extent, it seems to work because you can have, some celebrity coming and wishing you specifically a happy birthday or thanking you for, say, buying policy, etc. Does, as a consumer, when you realize that, okay, this is basically, just been put together for, for me, does it really kind of resonate the same way with you had it been, really genuinely?
Thank you. Well, we've all been hearing that there's going to be a cookieless world very soon, and we're still waiting for that. Thankfully, it's not yet. But I think most of us are prepared for it with the various ad tech platforms that have come up and who are offering you, again, AI, ML put together. How are you all prepared for it? As marketers, as people who design, strategize, is that going to make a lot of difference?
I think, as is rightly said, probably the cookieless advertising world, it's a little daunting to look at it, how it will shape up, and how we all will probably be looking to how we will actually advertise in that uncertain time. Given, I think, certain walled gardens actually push their timeline to cookie deprecation, so I think we have a lot more time to actually sort of be prepared for it. But I think in different ways, we all have been experimenting with it. The use of first-party data, I think, is one way you definitely can look to eliminate or manage that better. Brands needs to, really work toward acquiring that first-party data at various levels. And there are a lot of brands who are actually working, maybe just not just in BFSI, but even certain legacy brands or FMCG brand. They are now in this race to acquire first-party data so that they can be well prepared for it. I think in BFSI, there's a lot of information by the virtue of our engagement. You do lend that information, so customer do lend it, and that's actually a really good advantage that BFSI really sits onto it. How do you really collect that data and then start utilizing it, for your, just not about retention, it could be about for cross-sell, upsell, can really, help solve for it. So first party is definitely up there on top of the list for it. And brands are actually equally starting to invest on customer data platforms and so on to be able to build that capability in-house too. Then I think that the core topic that we're discussing today is been something that all brands can look to. Contextual advertising is in a way is actually cookie-less, privacy-safe advertising solution, and there are brands who've been mastering that. And while it sounds that contextual advertising can have its limitation, but there are brands who are trying to create content which resonates with the larger dominant content consumption that would be happening. So imagine maybe a BFSI brand or a mutual fund brand, which went out onto creating a content in a comedy space, so that they could seed in the thought about, let's say, your financial planning, using comedy as an out for it, and they could really talk to a much larger base. So now here is a opportunity for, let's say, BFSI, a mutual fund brand into financial planning, that is now able to contextually go in front of people who are looking for comedy content for it. So you really could widen your reach massively, and also be able to drive the outcomes that you're hoping for it.
Francis, you want to move forward?
So I think I just build on what Ashok said. I think it's, in a cookieless world, first party data becomes important. And the important thing is how do you take or collect first party data. While BFSI has a lot of first party data, we are also kind of notorious for basically asking people to kind of very quickly give their numbers and email IDs and then basically chasing them. So the idea is how do you kind of create value, somebody to part with their first party data, do they see value in interacting with you? And I think this whole thing about creating more of that value at different stages will be very, very critical in terms of being able to kind of move that. Again, contextual advertising becomes really important in the absence of a lot of third-party cookie data. And then people reading a very specific contextual post, blog, or watching this very contextual video, again, some of those elements become important. The idea is how do you drive contextual advertising at scale? So most digital / other advertising will typically have contextual as a part of it. That's just smart advertising, right? But you'd also kind of go and perhaps advertise at just something that gives you massive reach, okay? Say cricket or some other sport or whatever else. Now, how do you kind of ensure that contextual pieces get scaled? With the help of AI, with the help of your first party data, with the help of a whole bunch of other things. I think that's truly the challenge in terms of really cracking that piece in the cookies. Having said that, I think the dateline keeps changing, so you really don't know when that will happen.
We already have options for investors to reject, right? So it's already there. So you have to play with what you have and how you're going to get. And he's absolutely right that BFSI, of course, collects a lot of first-party data because the investors have already come in, so certain PI information is available, and you need to go about it. But it's also important that you give them that option, right? You give them the option, do you want certain things or you don't want certain things from us? And increasingly more you sort of adapt to that, you will find that rather than doing a massive exercise and spending that bucks and doing that carpet bombing to all of these, even personalization to an extent, who is really interested would then consume, and I think that then your penetration increases. So I think as we go towards that, and again, when that will happen, anybody's guess, but I think we should adopt those options which are already there.
Very less to add on it, but on the first party data point, you can create cohorts and segment them into various kinds of people. people who have banked in the last 30 days with XYZ, or people who use their credit card but travel and then upsell them for some travel card or something like that. These are the kind of things I believe that can be done easily. And the other thing I know in media is that you can create partnerships and you can share data which is not in the data form, and you can obviously I don't remember the term they use, but it's encrypted. It's not data as, what do you say that? Hashed, right? Yeah. The data is hashed and you can actually custom match it with the partners like Meta or Spotify or wherever. So that's another media way of doing it.
It's just that while I think we all spoke about advertising, I think the one of the big problem, or the gap that will actually create with the cookieless advertising is going to be the measurement. I think that's the key to solve for it. And a lot of actually, we as a brand, marketers who've been spending, say, a lot of our monies on walled gardens, is actually that will probably come under a lot of scrutiny and might not be able to show as there's a lucrative result that we get to see currently on product. So I think there's a lot of work maybe for platforms to do, in order to be able to showcase that value. While we already see iOS doing that, and sort of Meta or Google already sort of actually building certain solutions in that space. I think it will be important for us as a marketer to be able to target and advertise, but it is also B is for measurement. I think that's an equally important aspect to sort of dive into it and be prepared for it.
So contextual is here to stay. It just needs to evolve, and I think AI definitely will evolve from what it is today. Thank you so much, all four of you, for this wonderful, wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you.